All right. I'm super excited to be here tonight with Erica Stevens. And Erica has a background in interpretation and resource management. And you've been a ranger at a bunch of parks and you're teaching nature journaling, including at the recent Wild Wonder Nature Journaling Conference. So, welcome. I'm so glad you could be here tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, Marley. I'm really excited to talk with you.
Yeah, and it was really fun taking your class. I know people have been showing their pages from your class, Nature Journaling the Jurassic. It was really fun to do some nature journaling about fossils and about paleontology, and I thought that was really cool. So I'm really glad that you brought that to the nature journaling community because I feel like extinct species are sort of underrepresented. But before getting more into that, I wanted to mention the fact that you're starting this East Bay regional park, East Bay Nature Journal Club. So
Yeah.
could you describe your ideal nature journaling outing in the East Bay?
Of course. Yeah. I think that my ideal day for journaling in general would be in some kind of serene wilderness setting, and areas that I usually enjoy are like the Red Rock Desert and the Sierra Mountains that we have so close by. But I'm so drawn here to the East Bay because the park where I work is called Sunol Regional Wilderness, and it does provide for those quiet moments that you can have along the trail as you nature journal. And so I try to do, a mixture of observations and poetry and whatever inspires me out there. Um, and so, just as being a naturalist, I just like to explore all of those elements in nature around me. And sometimes I have a destination in mind, but mostly I just enjoy the journey along the way. And honestly, it takes me a while stopping to look and check out, oh, what's that bug? What's that leaf? Kind of thing.
Yeah, nature. One of my favorite quotes is "Nature is so distracting," and there's always something you think you're going to be nature journaling about this, and then actually like a bug or a bird comes by, and so
Yeah,
I
exactly. It's just like there's endless opportunities to explore, and I feel so incredibly lucky every day to be spending, a majority of my time outside in nature. So,
That's really cool. I'm just gonna look over here at the chat real quick and say hi to. I see there's a lot of people tuning in. Angie is here from New Hampshire. Leslie, I think Ohio. Suzanne, I think Oregon. Ivea, San Francisco. Sherry is here saying hi from Crab Cove. Eli is here. Anne Marie is here. Whole bunch of people commenting in the chat. Go ahead and post questions that you have in the chat if you want me to ask Erica anything. Could you share some of your pages that you've done nature journaling in the East Bay? I feel like there's a lot of nature journalers in that area, and there hasn't been a club yet. I know John Muir Laws does a lot of his has done a lot of field trips in that area, but I think it's really cool. So could you share some pages that you've nature journaled in the East Bay?
yeah, and I've been recently reflecting back on a lot of this and how I've been nature journaling for a while, but last year really encouraged me to do it more with others as we went through, all the things we were experiencing with the pandemic. And I started off using just a regular journal. And so here it is. I even started it upside down. And I kept going.
Yeah,
Um, and so these have really, I think, progressed, or at least like the techniques I've used have progressed over time. And so here's some of my first pages from my nature journal workshops that I do every month. Here's
ooh,
one on appreciation for plants. we delved into more of the photosynthesis processes, and then really delved into knowing the ancient beginnings of plant origins, and then all of their incredible adaptations and things that make them strong and resilient. So as I, kind of continued, there's some on lovely lichens.
Ooh.
Maybe some of you watching joined these virtual workshops with me. One on clouds, which we did a poem right here and then made these little inserts.
Ooh.
And that was super fun. I'll show you the actual fold out, because this you can take with you in the field.
Oh.
There's like fun things you can do with clouds and crayons, and
Nice.
yeah, so there's so many examples. Those were the first ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've since upgraded my journal. And so I'll share some of the more recent ones. This one was on the greatest adaptation, in my opinion, feathers.
Mm-hmm. I think I saw that on your website or on your Instagram. Is that, or where did I see it?
Yeah, I put a lot of these on my Instagram, and I try to do that after each workshop. So that goals. Let's see what else here. This was the one I just did this last weekend, and I'm starting now to transition back to in-person. So this was my virtual one, and this was...
Wait, so I'm not going to let you... Where is that megalodon tooth from? Is that really from one of the East Bay Regional Parks?
Yes, it sure
No way.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so there has actually been evidence found of this super unique underwater past, a time during the Miocene when our Bay Area was completely covered in an inland sea. And right near Sunol Regional Wilderness, outside the boundary, is Calaveras Dam. And while they were working on that project, the megalodon tooth was discovered.
No way. That's so crazy.
The size of your hand.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so for people who, I think Shark Week was like, I feel like Megalodon gets so much media these days, but just in case anyone doesn't know, could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the Megalodon is extinct today, but can be compared to sharks today in that it did have cartilage, and that's what makes it so hard to be preserved as a fossil.
Yeah, right.
And so the teeth that are found, which are enormous, really help to piece together those clues of how large was this shark. Well, we think that it was the largest shark that ever lived on Earth, and got to 50 or even 60 feet long. Yeah, and
wow.
Its jaw, if you can imagine, if you're in your house right now, look at the top of your house and imagine 9 feet. That's as big as its jaw was.
Wow, that's so cool. Wow, I had no idea that there was megalodon remains found in the East Bay. That's super cool.
Right here in our area.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, that's really... That is really cool, really exciting. So could you talk a little bit about the East Bay Nature Journal Club that you just started? And wait, actually, you know what? This will be related, but I just noticed that Ivea asked, how can people find out about your monthly classes?
Oh, that's a great question. Thanks, Ivea. I offer monthly virtual and now in-person workshops through Sunol Regional Wilderness. And you can find these programs in a few different locations. You can follow our Sonol page on Facebook, and you can also visit ebparksonline.org, and that has a list of all of our naturalist activities where you can search journaling.
ebparksonline.org. I'll put that into the comments, and I think people can actually just copy and paste. If not, they can use it as an actual link. Great. Okay, so can you talk about the East Bay Nature Journal Club? It's super exciting.
Yeah, I know, and I just decided to go for it. I mean, really, and start this East Bay Nature Journal Club, and I really do have so many plans for it. I'd love for it to be a way for communities to meet up, and people to make new friends, including myself. I want to start our first meetings this fall, which is my absolute favorite season as well.
Mm.
And there's so many opportunities for us too. And I saw your suggestion the other day about doing tarantula.
Well, it was a question because I've heard I've heard of other groups like you know about they're sort of taking a little hibernation, I think, during COVID, but there's the uh, California Naturalist, California Natural History. Oh, I'm blanking on the name of the group, but they're based, most of them, in the East Bay, and they used to lead a lot of groups, and they would do these tarantula hikes in one of the East Bay regional parks, I think in the fall. I can't remember.
Yeah, the fall is the time when the males specifically
That's it.
start coming out of their burrows.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, we frequently do tarantula treks and night hikes, just for the East Bay Park programs, and
Awesome.
yeah, so look out for
Cool.
that.
Okay, and I think I have the link. I think I have the link here to your Facebook group. Is that the best place for people to follow this group?
The East Bay Nature Journal Club, yeah, definitely.
Okay, I'm gonna post this here in the comments, and I think that's a clickable link for people. It has a lot of numbers, so I think the clickable link, or at least being able to copy and paste it, will be helpful. That is really exciting. I feel like bringing some like having an organized group there will be really exciting. Could you name some of the different parks? Because it seems like there's quite a few parks in that area.
Oh, yeah, yeah, definitely. So the East Bay Regional Park District has 73
Oh my
different
God.
parks scattered across both Alameda and Contra Costa counties.
Wow.
Yeah, and I am in what's called the southeast sector of
Okay.
that. So parks like Sonol, Los Trompos, another wilderness, those are all kind of together.
Wow, that's really cool. I feel like I've been to a few, but not that many. Oh, there's a question here. Is Mount Diablo in the East Bay Regional Park District?
Oh, great question. Actually, Mount Diablo, we partner with them, but
Uh-huh.
they're actually a California state park.
Got
Uh,
it.
yeah.
Okay, cool, awesome. That is really exciting. So, what kinds of ecosystems are like what types of different ecosystems are they all sort of similar? Or a lot of times when I think of East Bay Regional Parks, I think I've been to like Tilden or something like that, and I imagine sort of like rolling hills, slightly away from the bay a little bit, and with like oak savanna kind of ecosystems. Are there other ecosystems, or like what are some of the features or ecosystem types that are covered?
Throughout the park. So
Yeah.
it's very diverse in the ecosystems, and like you said, where I really am stationed, we have those oak woodlands, but also Sonol has a riparian zone
Mm.
as well, with Alameda Creek running through it. and it's a protected watershed as
Mhm.
well. So it's just, a reminder how crucial and important these open land public spaces are
Are
for us.
there any coastal ones, or I think I did a couple searches before the conversation on just on YouTube East Bay Regional Parks, and I feel like there was like a Hayward, something in Hayward that was like along right along the bay.
Yeah, so we have our shoreline parks, just like that. We also have, if you go further north from where I am, you get to a mine park. So focused on, it's called Black Diamond Mines,
Mm.
that specific history. And all the parks, though, preserve so many both cultural and natural
Oh
resources.
yeah, yeah, that's a great
So,
point. So, because I mean, the East Bay was Ohlone territory, and I
mhm.
mean, there's a lot of it was a pretty dense population area for indigenous people, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the Ohlone are still thriving and, surrounding our communities as a
Mhm.
part of this area today. And, if you were to go to Berkeley, you'd see the Ohlone Cafe.
Right, I've heard about that.
Yeah, and
Cool.
so it's really neat that we do have such a wide variety of habitats because they each have their own stories as well.
Great, great. Yeah, and thanks for pointing out that the Ohlone people are still around. I think sometimes when we talk about the indigenous people, we talk in the past tense. So thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah.
Great. So here's a question that will sort of be a segue into some of the rest of our conversation. But it seems like you've worked in a lot of really amazing parks, such as Denali and Zion. So how does Sunol or how do the East Bay regional parks in general sort of compare to that? And what is
Mm.
special about them in your eyes, having seen Denali in Alaska and Zion in Utah, these sort of, really charismatic, well-known places. How does the East Bay compare?
Wow, and I've been getting that question a lot lately, Marley. And it's one that I've been thinking about too, because the you can't really compare any of even just talking about the national parks, because I'm also frequently asked, what is my favorite park? I don't know if I could answer that honestly, because they each have such their own specialty, their
Yeah.
own things that they preserve. I will say though that Sunol and the East Bay parks are very special to my heart because they're surrounded by all of these communities. They're surrounded by busy city life and people who really need to have those connections to nature. And having grown up in the city myself, I think that's what really draws me to
Hmm.
these state parks,
Hmm.
because I know how important it is.
Yeah, totally. It sounds like when you ask a mom, like, which is your favorite kid, they try not to answer that question.
Yeah. It's a lot of these larger national parks are also really overloaded too. And,
Mm.
the East Bay parks, many of them, we're seeing an increase in visitation, all spread throughout our public lands right now.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
um, they also provide still a sense of peace
Hmm.
and serenity. You can still step out onto the trail, maybe in a weekday, and not see another person for a long time. That's
Yeah.
great.
Do you have a YouTube? You do YouTube videos, right? A little bit.
I might be starting that soon, but
Okay.
not yet. Not yet.
Okay. Well, just a little heads up in my research preparing for this conversation, I use all these different analytic tools, and it looks like there's a huge demand for videos about East Bay regional parks. So if you were to make some videos with that title, that might
Mm.
be really good. Okay, so you mentioned Denali and Zion were the ones that I've seen in some of your biographies. What are some of the other parks that you've worked at?
My very first national park that I went to work in, actually, it was a smaller national monument called Dinosaur National
Oh
Monument.
yeah, okay, cool.
And
Right.
I started in 2010 as an interpretation intern.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was my very first glimpse of what life would be like as, not only a park ranger, but interpreter too. So that was such an impactful place that I actually ended up returning there years later. But after I graduated, I went straight to Grand Teton National Park, which, if you're not familiar with, that's right underneath Yellowstone
Okay, and so that's Wyoming.
in Wyoming.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I spent 2 summers there as a geoscientist in the park, really focusing my public programs, campfire talks, things like that, on climate change. And yeah, so I just really bounced around and lived my life in the parks and on the road for 10 years,
Wow.
actually. And, I I was interning and volunteering, like spend a winter on the Grand Canyon on the South Rim.
Wow.
And eventually I scored my first ranger position that was paid in Zion National Park. And that was in 2016. So, or 2015 and 2016 during the centennial.
Wow.
But yeah, there was many other organizations and stops along the way too, like for nonprofit organizations, the Mono Lake Committee being one of them. And so just all these experiences, I feel so lucky to have had them just because of the people,
Mm.
especially, that I met along the way.
Wow, that's really cool. That's a lot of amazing places, and that's really interesting that you mentioned the people being one of the important parts. That's really cool. Okay, so my next question is, how does being a park ranger and a nature journaler go together, if at all? Like, did you start nature journaling before you became a park ranger, or how did you incorporate those two things, if at all? Because you're the first person I think you're the first person I've talked to that nature journals and is also a park ranger.
Cool. That's awesome. And, I'll tell you just super quickly, it goes hand in hand. Those two are so similar. And I actually began nature journaling in 2014 when I was a naturalist with the Mono Lake Committee, and had my first workshop in person there with John Muir Laws. Yep. I think many can relate to him being such an inspiration. And actually, here's a little thing in my guide that he put in there for me.
Oh, nice.
I know. And it was just so impactful, and to the point where, I just continued it. And I had always tried to keep a daily written journal
Huh.
at every park that I've been in. But yeah, that was the turning point for me. And, park rangers are interpreters who tell these stories about the
Mm.
land and journaling. And this is just another form of storytelling, really, is how I kind of look at it. And I teach nature journaling just, to let the observations lead the way to more discovery.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, I think, the strongest link between being a ranger and journaler, that they're both about having these adventures, making discoveries, and journaling complements it so well.
Wow, that's really cool. I love hearing different people's stories about meteor
Yeah.
laws and all of that. Um, so what was your experience? Like, do you have any cool stories or experiences nature journaling at any of these parks that come to mind?
Ooh, let's see. I have a ton of wildlife experiences that come to mind.
Okay, sure, yeah. Why don't you share one of your top ones?
Let's see. I think, okay, so I was in Grand Teton. I worked at the Jenny Lake Visitor Center, and I was collecting all of my programs. I was about to do a bison campfire talk on climate change. And there was so many items I wanted to take for my program that I actually ended up wrapping myself in the bison pelt that we had. And I'm carrying all my stuff down the trail, and a huge moose popped out of the bushes. And it startled me. I dropped my stuff, and we both looked at each other and then just bolted. The moose just left. So
Wow.
it wasn't journaling, but it was hilarious.
Yeah, no, that gives me an idea. Maybe using decoy nature journaling could be like a new thing, like, wearing like an animal kind of uh, disguise and nature journaling underneath your bison skin could be a new thing.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a really cool story.
Yeah, and now that I have some time to think about it too, I actually set up art stations in Zion when I worked there, right down the riverside walk, which actually leads to what's called the Narrows, where people start walking into the river from there. And I had various art supplies that people could borrow, use, and then just go sit on a rock for a while and reflect. And this was definitely like, they could choose if they wanted to just sketch, write, journal. And it was just really cool because sometimes we get into, getting to that destination, and we pass so much along the way.
Yep.
So.
Cool. Okay, I'm gonna look over here at I'm trying not to like look at the comments all the time because then I'm not like as present with what you're saying. But lots of reactions to your story. People loving that. Let me just share Angie's here real quick. I should share this. This is a question. Here's a question from Ivea that I think is interesting, and we have several people here in the audience that are experienced in this. So maybe you could comment on this a little bit because Andrew Rosales is also here, and he works down at Cabrillo National Monument in San Diego, and Ivea does a lot of work at the Presidio and has a ton of experience in the San Francisco area. So could you comment at all, or any thoughts about this? What Ivea is saying here?
Yeah, is it hard to find a permanent position as a park ranger? Let's see, and does it depend on which park that you're working for? Yeah, I mean, definitely it is challenging to score a permanent position in the national parks, and that's why I spent so many years as an intern and volunteer. And a large piece that I left out before I got my first paid job at Zion was that I left my volunteer position at Grand Canyon 2 weeks early. And I had applied to Zion. So I drove there and I camped out for 4 nights in the rain. And I called, did you get my application? Did you get it yet? And as I was driving out of Springdale, Utah, right outside the park, I got a call for my first seasonal position. But as far as permanent, it's a lot more difficult even than a seasonal because hundreds of people are applying for these jobs. But I encourage, if anyone's out there watching, you're interested in becoming a park ranger, I would love to give you some advice and talk through some steps with you on maybe some ways that might help to become permanent or seasonal.
Great
Yeah.
question. Great question, Ivea. And Andrew had some answers or some thoughts about her question as well.
Mm-hmm.
People loved the moose story. So cool, awesome.
Cool.
All right, so next question, sort of in the same sort of thread here, is what have you found? It seems like you've taught nature journaling a lot in these different positions, and you've mentioned that being an interpreter and providing these sort of stories and educational content is a major part of being a park ranger. What was the receptivity to nature journaling that you found? Like, did you have to kind of run run your sort of lesson plans by like higher positions, or did you have to sort of justify like, oh, I'm going to teach about nature journaling, or oh, I'm going to integrate nature journaling into my interpretive stuff? Like, what inside of the bureaucracy of the park system, what was their receptivity to nature journaling?
I'm really glad that you're bringing that up, actually, because at first there was a lot of doubt in that it could be successful, and I think that others had tried it in the past, and maybe I don't know how they did it, but I kind of just said, well, let me try it out. Give me a chance. And I scheduled my first program in 2019 before everything shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 12 people.
Wow, that's good.
Which in our smaller East Bay parks, that's definitely a good crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And so from there, that's when everything really had to pivot the ways that we were teaching. And they then allowed me to continue virtually. And that's when we could really expand, not just in our East Bay, but around the world.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, because I think this is a question that I have, around this. So another question would be, do you think that the parks in general, and I'm not super knowledgeable about, like the differences between national parks, regional parks, and all of these, and the sort of the organizational stuff around it. I'm sure it's a really complicated diagram, but do you think that the parks could be a place for the awareness around nature journaling to be brought to sort of more of a public level?
Yeah, so how would we kind of bring light to the fact that these opportunities in parks exist? Is that
Right. That's not actually what I was thinking, but that could be an aspect of it as well. But like, do you think that through the parks are such a large organizational aspect of the United States, and do you think that that could be a good place to bring nature journaling to more people?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that, it all comes down to a lot of factors, but I think some of the most important ones start with determination. And you also have to be passionate about nature journaling too.
Mhm.
Because I care so much about nature journaling. I think that that's really what gave confidence
Mm.
to our higher management to allow it to happen. But I definitely think that if you stay determined and you're working in national parks, that we should try to offer more opportunities like this. Yeah,
Got it. So it's sort of what you're saying reminds me of how a lot of public school teachers speak about things like this. So it sort of sounds like the weight is needs to be bared by the individual sort of park rangers or the individual teachers, and that like I'm sure I'm not super knowledgeable about your job, but I'm sure it's very busy and you have a lot of less glamorous things that you have to do. So correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me like what you're saying is that individuals such as you who are already have a limited amount of time and a large list of things to do would have to just have their own personal drive to bring nature journaling in. Is that what you're saying?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that is possible, and I'm grateful that there's passionate people like you. And I hope I like kind of wishing there's like some more like systemic way that we could spread nature journaling to more people.
Maybe we can make, ultimately, it would be great to add these into our standards, even like state
Mm,
standards, and also larger programs. We do art in a park type programs, and
mhm.
it aligns with those kind of things perfectly.
Great.
So I do think that a lot of things start with individuals
Yep.
and can make a bigger impact too, though.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so glad that you are doing that. And my last sort of question in this sort of thread is, how do you feel? Like I feel like a lot of people, a lot of things I've been reading lately. I think it might have been in one of the Richard Louv books. He was one of the speakers at the Nature Journaling Conference.
Mhm.
He's the author of Last Child in the Woods. I think it was in one of his books that I was reading, but I've seen it in other places where people lament this sort of way that many Americans engage, and they might not all be Americans. There's people who travel to this country to visit the national parks, but this sort of lament that many of the visitors to the national parks are doing a very superficial visit, and they might not even leave their car when they drive through Yosemite, for example, or they might just never walk off of the asphalt. What thoughts do you have around this sort of, I don't want to like over dramatize it, but sort of
Yeah.
trend or this statistical pattern that like the majority of the people's, and I also don't want to necessarily say that it's a negative thing. Maybe you can just kind of free flow with your own thoughts and your own feelings around the ways in which people interact with the parks, national parks, etc., and how like superficial or how they engage.
Yeah, so that's a, I think, super involved question. And I think that I should start with technology, because our cell phones and our, ties to looking at the screen, especially in more recent days where we, kind of been doing more virtual things, really impacts our park experiences. And, you know, if we are able, I feel that if I am able to remove myself from my cell phone or that kind of thing, maybe Wi-Fi, when I go into a park, it'll impact my experience in a completely different way. Um, Unless I go into it, using Wi-Fi and using technology to my advantage
Mhm.
to explore and heighten my experiences in nature For example, that would be something like using iNaturalist app.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it goes both ways, and I think each individual has expectations that they set before they go into their park experience. And I found that the level of preparedness impacts that a lot too.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so maybe you don't want to plan your trip hour by hour, and that is okay. I don't think I would want to do that either. But having an idea of what you might want to explore or get from your trip, I think is going to really impact your overall experience in the place. And so those ideas that Richard Louv is expressing, I think there's so many of those factors, though. Technology, ability to remove yourself from it, and your goals too, your personal goals.
Yeah. I think that's really important. Great. Okay, I have to share this comment from Terry because she's just sending you a lot of love. So
thank you, Terry.
Great. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for talking about the park system and all of that. So I have a couple questions here about teaching and stuff like that. What is something that you learned? So it sounds like you started teaching nature journaling mainly in 2019, and that was when you already started working at the East Bay Regional Parks?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay, what is something that you have learned from teaching nature journaling?
Ooh, something that I've learned. The cool thing is that I continue to learn, and I will never consider myself an expert because I'm learning with you. I'm learning with each of you, and kind of see this as like, we're embarking on this journey of figuring it out and figuring out what we're even observing in the first place. And so I think that what I've learned is that I can keep discovering and learning more. How cool is that?
Yeah, all right, good job. Okay, so you that's the sign that you're a pro nature journaling instructor.
No.
Awesome answer. Thanks, Erica. That's great. Okay, so tell us a little bit now about Naturalistnest.
Ooh, Naturalistnest. I would call that.
I'm gonna show it here real quick so people don't know.
Yeah, so I basically would call Naturalistnest like my individual project space, and that's just because it's really my platform for nature journaling and a way to keep folks updated on events and updates and news in my journaling world, which is just somehow rapidly expanding, and I love it. But yeah, I created the website Naturalistnest and just sent out my first newsletter for people who subscribe. And so it has information about upcoming journaling programs. I also include my East Bay programs in there too.
Oh, cool.
And then there's going to be coming up the East Bay Nature Journal Club updates and all sorts of things like that. So really, I see it as being a way to connect and communicate.
Totally. And are you going to be offering virtual classes through that website as well? Is that part of the plan? Okay, great. Well, it seems like you're up to a lot of different things, which is really cool. I wish I could say I can't relate at all to that. Okay, so how do you feel like you're ready for the lightning round?
Yes, bring it on, Marley.
Okay, cool. Well, currently there's some paving going on outside on my street, but hopefully it won't be two ladder. And can you see that from over there?
Yeah, there were some flashes out there.
Wow, I can tell you're really experienced at doing interpretation stuff and teaching kids and all of that. So I love that. Okay, let me see over here my my questions, my lightning round questions. Okay, so first we'll start with some of these quick sort of, some of them are yes or no, but they're sort of short answer. Is coffee an essential art supply?
Yes.
Okay. Is
I
your
have coffee stains in my on my books.
Okay, great. It's just for everybody so that you know it's not archival. Coffee stains are not archival. So if you're hoping for your nature journal coffee stains to last pristine into the next millennium, that might be a problem. Are you a organized or messy artist?
Like, do I leave my stuff everywhere afterward? Is that what you mean?
What is your first kind of gut instinct on that question?
Scatter. So
Okay. I like how you're reframing the terms there. Does your family understand your art?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. My mom and I just went nature journaling
Ooh,
recently together.
nice. Awesome. Do you eat snacks while you are nature journaling?
All the time. Huge fan of snacks. Yes.
All right. Would you rather nature journal plants or animals?
Plants.
Okay.
Animals.
Not very much thought. That didn't take you too long to figure that one out. Okay. Ink or graphite? Ink or graphite?
Ink.
Okay. If you could nature journal with any historical figure, who would you nature journal with? Or prehistorical figure?
Prehistorical figure, like a creature.
No, well, I mean before the written word.
Historical figure. Ooh, that's a good one. Let's see. How about one of the first naturalists, or some really impactful naturalists like Rachel Carson.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah,
Rachel Carson would be awesome.
I think so too.
Okay, you're going to be stranded on a beautiful deserted island with lots of different tropical plants and animals, but you can only bring 5 nature journaling supplies with you. All of your survival needs are taken care of, so you don't have to bring knives or canned food or anything like that. What 5 nature journaling supplies would you bring?
5. Okay, and I'm on an island, so I have water.
Yeah, don't worry about your survival's all taken care of. It's just purely nature journaling stuff that you need to worry about.
I'm thinking about my water brush here.
All right.
Okay, so water brush. I can keep refilling that. I could make paper potentially, depending. So I don't think I'm going to take paper. How about, I could make inks. What do I really need? Like binding materials.
Binding materials.
Yeah, and then like a waterproof pouch.
Okay.
And I still have 2 more. A grinder to make my own pigments and colors. Because I could use that for food too. And let's see, I need another one. Probably, let's see, snacks. No, that's not included, is it?
Your snacks are I mean, some people have said chocolate, so.
Really? Yeah, I think a book.
A book.
Book would help me.
Yeah, some people have done that. Wow, you're on some of these are on a different level than what people usually. I think. You're taking that to a whole nother level of like self-sufficiency there on this island. Okay, so I'm not going to ask you the question about if you were transported through a fairy portal, what art supplies you would take, because that's kind of similar. Okay, here's a good one. If if there were, okay, the nature journaling Olympics are coming up this summer or next summer. Which event would you compete in? Which nature journaling Olympic event do you think would be your specialty?
Uh, Not swimming. Let's see. Although kayaking, perhaps. I know that's. I don't think that's an Olympic
Nature
thing.
journaling on a kayak,
That would
perhaps?
be cool. That's something that I want to do soon too. I haven't tried that.
Okay. That's a great one. Okay, which fictional character from, from recent movies or from books do you think would be best at nature journaling?
Which recent character from a book?
Yeah, so like from books or movies or whichever fictional characters are most alive in your own imagination, do you think would be best at nature journaling?
Hmm. I'm thinking back to like old cartoons and stuff. Like probably who could do it the fastest is the Tasmanian devil. But
Oh,
that then it
okay.
would get like
Yeah,
shredding.
all right. I like that. Good answer. Yeah, so the Tasmanian devil. All right. Probably better than Coyote from Looney Tunes. Great answer.
Yeah.
Haven't heard that one before. Okay. All right. So great job in the lightning round. You survived the lightning round. Let's hear your best lightning sound though. Yes. Dang. I'm gonna record that and use it in all future episodes. Okay, so just a couple more questions, sort of ending questions here. Nothing deep or philosophical at all. What is your dream? What would be your dream nature journaling project?
Ooh, my dream nature drawing project. Well, it definitely wouldn't just be solo. My immediate thought is that it would be kind of something more along the lines of, what International Nature Journaling Week is like, or the conferences that, it's like a worldwide community effort
Mm,
to spread awareness of our environment impacts and all through nature journaling. Um,
cool.
yeah.
Wow, that is awesome. Um, Okay, one of my other final questions that's sort of related here is you mentioned climate quite a few times in your interpretation work, even when you were wearing the bison skin. What do you think? What do you think is the role that journalers have in this time that we live in, where we're dealing with this crazy kind of intersection between like all of this information telling us that we're changing the climate and the climate is changing in these drastic ways. But it seems like people are having trouble and governments and organizations are having trouble doing anything about it. What role do nature journalers potentially play in our current challenging crisis around the climate?
What a great question. Thank you for that question because I think it's so important. And the first thing that I'll say is staying positive
Hmm.
about it. And, not looking at it as we're all doomed, but instead, there is still hope. There are still ways for us to fight the impacts of climate change. And this could be by keeping records, simply the effort of nature journaling, and looking back on those to see how it's changing, what environments it's happening in, and what the impacts are. It could truly make a difference.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so staying positive and record keeping are both important ones. Awesome. Have you ever heard of the podcast called Future Ecologies?
Mm-mm.
I would check it out. I just listened
Hmm.
to recently, they did a whole series about climate inaction and the psychological basis for different psychological reasons people don't do anything, even if they think they understand. And it was very interesting. And they talked about hope,
Super
and they
interesting.
use this term hope punk, which I thought was really cool. Have you heard the term grim dark before as a genre? So Mad Max, The
Oh,
Matrix, uh,
okay.
uh, Total Recall. These are all like grim dark depictions of the future. So
Hmm.
Hope Punk is sort of like on a different end where it's not like Mad Max. It's a little bit more hopeful. Anyways,
Yeah. Yeah.
I highly recommend that podcast. Very cool.
I'll check
Um,
it out for sure.
so another sort of big question here before we end is how I'm blanking on her name right now. I've interviewed almost all of the instructors and speakers from Wild Wonder Conference, but there was a doctor. I'm blanking. I think Dr. Nushin. I can't remember her name, but she works in the East Bay, and she showed a map that was very unsettling for me about access and equity, and the importance of her whole talk was about how access to nature is medicinal basically,
Mhm.
and she started this park prescription thing where they were helping people get outside in any way possible, and how that was beneficial to their health. But then she showed a map of the East Bay, and it basically was correlating life expectancy with access to regional parks or distance from open space. Could you
Hmm.
talk a little bit, since you are working in that area and you're also starting this club in that area, like any
Hmm.
thoughts you have around sort of like access and equity? And this is something that doesn't come up. It's coming up a lot more in the nature journaling community, but this, yes, Ivea, thank you, Ivea. Dr. Nushin Razani is the one that talked about it. But could you share any of your thoughts or feelings around access and equity, and how just nature journaling so far tends to be not a super diverse community?
Yeah, I think that that's such an important topic, and actually we are having a lot of conversations about just that within our East Bay Regional Park District. Brainstorming ways to make it easier, make our parks more accessible. Not only the buildings and the visitor centers, but our programs that we're leading for people too. And that includes virtual programming, which, since we had to adjust and adapt so quickly last year, certain aspects were hard because people like me, we were figuring it out as fast as we could. But there's still things to incorporate, many things like captioning,
Yeah.
photo captions
Right.
on everything that we post, and things like that. And so yeah, I do think that there's so much work to be done. um, but yeah, getting that conversation started is super important.
Great, great. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. All right, so I guess my last question is there anything that you want to share that is important that we haven't had a chance to talk about so far?
Hmm. I mean, I am just so grateful for, um, you know, having the mentors that I have had in my life that have inspired me to do art, like my grandma, and do nature journaling. Because I do see it as this way to not only express how you're feeling, your creativity, but really connect to these beautiful parklands, that are each of ours to enjoy. But yeah,
Cool.
that's it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your grandma. I'm also grateful for her.
Oh, she gave me my first art supplies. So,
Oh, nice. That's
and she
cool.
worked in Walt Disney's garage too. When I
Wow.
first started. Yeah.
Dang, claim to fame right there. If people want to, stay posted with what you're up to, where is the best place? Where would you want to direct people to? Should they go to the Facebook East Bay group, or do you want people to go to Naturalist Nest, or where is the best place?
I know there's a lot of places right now. I'm using Naturalistnest for general updates, separate from my position with the East Bay
Got
Regional Park District.
it. Okay.
And so you can follow that as well as the East Bay Nature Journal Club. And that's my own personal endeavors. If you want to join my monthly nature journaling workshops, that's through Sunol Regional Wilderness.
And what's the website for that?
That would be ebparks.org/Sunol.
Let me type that in here. ebparks.org/Sunol.
Yeah, and to find all of those programs again, it's going to be ebparksonline.org.
ebparksonline. ebparksonline.org.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Yeah, I have nocturnal journal coming up in
oh my gosh, I just did a moth nature journaling at night on Saturday. It was amazing.
I bet that would be super cool.
Cool. Well, I'm just gonna give a shout out to some of the people here in the comments. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Angie, Ivea, Andrew, Eli. A bunch of these people are patrons on my Patreon. Thank you, Terry. Sounds like she's a big fan of yours. And thanks to Susan and all these other people who commented, and Leslie commented in the chat, and all the people who are watching this as a recorded version. And Erica, thank you so much for making the time, and I hope to nature journal some cool East Bay stuff with you sometime soon.
I hope so too. Thank you so much for chatting with me, Marley, and I'll see you out in the parks.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so everybody who's watching at home, see you out there in the parks.
Bye.
Bye.